Operations Manager for Women Dev Singapore. So, who exactly are we? We are basically a volunteer group to empower women to excel in their technical careers. So, let me share with you a lot more. Great. All right, so Women Dev Singapore, we're formerly known as Women Who Code Singapore, and we are dedicated to inspire women to excel in their technology careers. So after we rebranded, we've actually like rised up significantly, as you can see from our numbers. So we have about 300 plus attendees for our events and 800 more new members. We've also hit 1,000 followers on LinkedIn recently, and we are also the largest and most active community group on Meetup. So our vision is actually a world where women are equally represented and empowered as like technical executives, founders, venture capitalists, board members, team leaders, and software engineers. So what exactly do we offer, right? So we do both technical and non-technical workshops. So for technical, it could be like right now with our software talks. We also have like a data analytics like workshops that we did last year. So even the AI safety, we having a product management workshop happening next month. So keep an eye out for that. And we also have non-technical. So like busting imposter syndrome or like I am remarkable workshops. So if you're interested in conducting a workshop with us, we will send there'll be a link to sign up soon. So yeah, it's mostly for anyone and everyone. We also have a interview prep. This is part one that we had online. We'll be having part two as well next month, which will be talking more about resumes and stuff. And yeah, so it's about today's event will be this is what we do. And yeah, if you're interested in volunteering with us, take your phones out right now and to scan the link tree. Yeah, I'll give you guys about a minute to take out your phones and to scan. If you're interested in becoming a speakers or like leading our tech domains with us, we are looking out for AI, UI, UX. Or if you're interested in becoming like a social media manager or anything, please do look. All right. Yeah. Quick shout out is also RegTech Dev, which is our little tiny tech podcast that we have that also talks about the realities in tech. So we cover like system design. We also have like interviews. We also have like episodes with hiring managers as well, or like any like talk about a day in the life of a female engineer, or just many other episodes that you can watch. Here are all the platforms. Yeah, so we also have a newsletter, so you can check it out and see when we'll be having our next event and stuff. Okay. Now we're starting off with our fireside with our very first speaker. We have Ace Yip, who will be sharing with us about building SUP, which is like scaling AI as a team founder. Ace, please. Stop sharing.
Right. I'm Ace. I'm the CEO and founder of SUP. And essentially, what we do at SUP is to help graduates as well as students at tertiary levels of education to help them with early career development. So that could be anything from internships to full-time roles or exploring also how to develop their professional skills. And I think what we really started from was building it from experience. We did not set out to build a startup. I think with people my age currently, what I've noticed with a lot of young founders is that they like to think of, I want to build a startup, and then they reverse engineer it to think, what do I want to build? How do I make the most revenue, et cetera, et cetera. For me personally, as a founder, it was because I went through this entire process myself. In 2023, I was in pre-law and I was searching for a law internship, and I essentially cold emailed 400 firms to get one place. Obviously, it's not this difficult across every industry, but also in some industries, it's more difficult than this. So my friend actually this summer just graduated from Yale, was trying to look for a software engineering role, and I think he got 700 applications through just to land on one role finally. So what we realized was that fresh graduates are not just, finding difficulty getting early career roles, but also to really find roles that are able to equip them with more critical skills that can carry along with them, because we're not seeing people stay in the same roles for like 30 years anymore. There's a lot more pivoting and a lot more flexibility and agility in the job market, especially with everything coming up with AI, and also just how enterprises are restructuring their manpower and also workflows. So that's kind of how we got the idea to put together something that could essentially help these job seekers or help these early career people in every stage of the process, especially because when I myself was looking for something to use, there were products out there, but either A, they were not specialized towards students. So for example, when I was trying to find like leads and like outbound sequencing, that was like Apollo, but it's a B2B SaaS tool. So yeah, works, but not really optimized. And the second thing was fragmentation. Because so many of these tools, like let's say you use LinkedIn to network, and then you search for things on JobStreet, and then you have to take your coffee chats offline. Everything is very disorganized. And I think for someone who knows how to navigate this, at most the pain point is just, troublesome, tedious. But for people starting out without a concrete idea or like a roadmap, it's more of they get lost, they just don't know where to begin, they just don't progress. So we realized there was a lot more critical than that. And along the way, not only did I find people that, wanted to build this thing with me, which it started as a little project. It was supposed to be a holiday project. So I found more people that wanted to build it. I found people wanted to use it. And I also discovered that, firms have problems with talent acquisition as well. So especially with startup founders and SMEs that I spoke to in Singapore, that's such a large market, they were like, for us, hiring good talent is hard as well. So we realized it was a two-way street, right? And from there, when we conceptualized then what our product should be beyond just these few features that we're putting together in a universal platform, we realized that we also wanted to leverage the power of community as well as the power of really having embedded pedagogy for early career development within our product to make it more than just a suite of features. So obviously there is everything about automation, about like, let's say, optimized resumes, job board aggregation, but we also wanted there to be things like community-driven data aggregation. One of the most helpful tools that I've seen personally are those things that, are passed down by seniors, just Google Sheets of questions, or let's say a group chat where you can ask, have you interviewed for this role before? What was it like? And how do we really bring this to a wider set of people? We wanted to embed it directly onto the platform itself. And also because we wanted to work directly with institutions. So obviously there's a B2C aspect of this where we can distribute it to anyone that finds us and wants to pay for the products. But we also wanted to bring it to institutional subscriptions. And from there, a question that we got a lot was, so we have a career department. Is your thing trying to basically replace our career department? And to that, we say no, because what we wanted was to basically take the idea of what schools want to educate their tertiary or like pre-career students with, right? Which is go out and find things in the industry to do, get to know the industry, get to know the different type of roles, the different pathways. And we put this into our product such that after the career office, imparts all these messages, the students have an actionable follow-up. They can use our tool to actually go and take that into the real world. But anyways, just a little bit of backstory as well, beyond just the features, because obviously that's a very hardworking team behind it. What we've been doing since starting in early 2025, when I got my team of devs together, was we started sprints towards the MVP in March. And then we launched our MVPs with a couple of schools in Singapore in May. So we actually launched not just across uni students. We realized that there was an earlier market as well with JCs, polys, and even some secondary schools. They're very excited about what we were building. So we had 2,000 waitlisted users, and we are actually gearing up towards a public launch. Well, our product has gone public, but we haven't done the proper launch yet, which is supposed to be at the end of this month. Yeah. And in June, we also were doing a lot more community engagement things, like we were teaching reinforcement learning at SUTD. We were launching demos across the US, as well as bringing our testing to a couple of schools along the East Coast. So for example, we were working with the Delta V Accelerator at MIT. This was us hosting a couple of public events in New York, as well as in San Francisco. It was very scrappy. Both of our events were like the day before our flights off. So very stressful, but also very fun. It was a very interesting experience. Yeah. So I'll just delve a little bit into like micro demos of our product itself. So this, for instance, is our, oh, that did not play. Okay, this, for instance, is our leads database and email generation. So what students are able to do with this is essentially be able to search through an aggregated database of professional profiles. So it's similar to LinkedIn, but from there generate cold mail sequences that's optimized and tailored towards each thing. So for example, if I'm looking for a role at GovTech and I want to do a coffee chat, I can just use this automated workflow. We also have tools like resume builders. So knowing that firms are moving towards really systems like ATS systems and also like running resumes through their own internal systems, we wanted to find a way to help students really personalize their resume to each JD and each opportunity that they're applying for. So what we have here is also proactively prompting the users to make improvements from a more educational perspective. We also included a feature whereby students can use natural language to prompt basically our tool to make changes to their resumes, so that it's a lot faster and a lot more simple for them, rather than, let's say, having to input a very how do I say, complex prompt that most non-technical students wouldn't be familiar with. Of course, we also had things in the suite like interview practices. So you can really see that this is an aggregation of what we felt as students going through this process we needed at any stage of the recruiting process. So here, for example, our interview practice is able to take the video input of the students' live practice in response to a prompt, and then track their eye contact, their body language, sentiment analysis, and as well as obviously content and structure of the response that they're giving to give them concrete, actionable insights on what they can do to improve. So for example, over there, it's just after recording this short clip, then there's a slew of feedback on things as simple as structure of their response, organization, but also more complex details as well. So just to jump into our development process, this is our architectural design. I think we can delve into that a little bit more later. I'm trying to speed run this, but we also are working off Gemini on the back end for context. And I think a lot of thought went into our selection. We used to be on OpenAI, and then we moved towards Gemini just because it was cheaper, faster, better. And also the choice to build with APIs rather than, let's say, a proprietary model. Being that we are a startup, we're very fast moving, we're very lean, and to us, it just didn't make sense to compete with anybody that is really having the wide data set or the resources to build a model from scratch. This is our AI/ML integration architecture, as well as our things like document processing pipelines, especially for features like our resume generator. And just a few slides on integration security as well. I think this was a large problem that we faced because once our product was getting tested with public pools of users rather than just private monitored pools, we had a lot more security issues. I think a lot of people, there are a lot of trolls, of course, and also when working with institutions, we had to work around a lot of compliance guidelines and checklists that they wanted us to take off, which when it comes to universities, they are very, very convoluted with that. Yeah. So our dev process mainly revolves around weekly sprints and sync ups. So yeah, we used to not use Jira. That was a mess. We are now using that. And past just security and product features and bringing out the MMP, what we've been doing now is also a couple of more optimized UI UX changes. So for example, simple things like layout, intuitiveness of our platform, because we're so consumer oriented, a bulk of our time was actually spent on that. Yeah. So I think just some insight reflections for us as very, very early on developers as well was, first of all, the tech stack that we used. At first, we were working off a relatively unintuitive tech stack for most of our developers. I think like a grand total of one person on the team was actually proficient with this. I don't know how we made that mistake, honestly, but we moved on from that very quickly, and now we're on Next.js and Tailwind, CSS on the front end, for example, which a lot more people are competent with, and we've been moving a lot faster. The second main thing that I would just flash out would be lack of project management at the start. We low-key like undervalued the significance of this because we thought we would just want to build fast and move quickly, but there was, first of all, not enough documentation, for example, tracking of tasks. And when it came to user testing and everything as well as things like unit testing, then this became a really big problem, as well as when our dev team grew, because we started with a very, very lean team, but we were taking on interns, we were taking on new software engineers, then it was really hard to onboard, really hard to delegate and track. So yeah, lack of project management was one of the early things that we didn't place enough focus on, I'd say. And I think the last point is just really quickly, there weren't enough product-focused conversations, at least because our team was initially split into business and dev side, and it was just two teams operating very much in silo, rather than having these conversations, because the business side was very front-facing in terms of events or speaking to investors, speaking to users. So that's also a change that we implemented to really accelerate our development. Yeah. So I think that is the gist of what I wanted to share. I think we can move on to questions, if anything.
Fireside chat?
Yes.
Okay, sure. Thank you so much, Ace, for talking about your tech, and so interesting to learn more. So the question I'd like to ask you is, what was the hardest part about getting started? Was it like the tech knowledge, the team, or to convince people to take you seriously?
Well, I'd say that we would center it around the team because, first of all, I think early stage hiring is very important for startups. We didn't realize this at the start because for most of us, this was our first times building something outside of, let's say, a school project or outside of, a standalone end-to-end project. So when it comes to teams, we had never really had the power to pick who we want on the team. And so we understated the value of that. I think we had a very high churn rate at the start. We had a lot of people coming on and off. Not only was that an onboarding nightmare and also code-based nightmare with the fragmentation, but also in a sense, it was just really a roadblock in everything, including even thinking about tech stack, because every time someone new comes on, we have to think about what they can work with, etc. So I'd say really it was the team on the tech end because we were working with things like Next.js or like very standard things like, let's say, Supabase on the database. So it was relatively easier for us to find something that's common ground for everyone. Yeah.
All right. Then let's talk about your subs architecture, shall we? So how did you design the system to balance scalability, speed, and security?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, I'll just start with the boundaries that we had to work within, which is very scarce resources as an early stage startup because we had very preliminary funding from angel investors as well as government, but that was still very limited. So for things like, let's say, hosting or databases, we had to go with more cost-efficient options. So for example, we are on Supabase for our database, as well as backend is hosted on Render, front end is hosted on Vercel, and these are obviously not the most scalable or the most, ideal options. We are intending to move towards AWS for everything like database and hosting later on, but we just picked what was best in terms of speed as well as really the value and potential like scalability to a certain point within the resource constraints. So for example, with Vercel especially, because it also had an existing like community as well as let's say even for our front end, because we wanted to pick things with existing libraries and the community support. So I think that's a key point that we went with in picking these options. Yeah.
Okay, so a follow-up would be like, did you ever like hit like a major performance or like a security issue that in your production, and how did you and your team like solve it?
Yeah, we had a really funny security issue actually where some very okay we later on found out who this person was, but at that point it was some random person decided to spam our database, and while obviously we had like capacity, like, it was going to crash, it was also going to drive our costs up astronomically, which we did not want that burn rate at this early stage. So suddenly we had like millions of inputs after we released our waitlist site, millions of inputs overnight. And that was because basically we didn't implement like the right like security measures. And so from that, we moved towards implementing things like Cloudflare to protect against like DDoS as well as this bot spam. And we also started taking cybersecurity a lot more seriously. So for example, right now we have someone working specifically on cybersecurity, and also trying to like do like preemptive testing before we roll out each feature as well. Yeah, and so like for example, after having that Cloudflare stuff, we basically didn't have much trouble on the cybersec end. Yeah.
Speaking of security in general, so I see that your app, it stores resumes and like personal information, as well as like they have the interview portion as well, where you can see like someone's face, and the AI will produce the results based on their clarity and all of that, right? So my question would be like, all these handles like sensitive data. So like, how did you approach like privacy and data protection from like the start, and what are some like security compliances that you and your team like follow and all that or implement?
Yeah, so I would say definitely the first thing is I think a lot of startups don't place enough emphasis on the legality as well as like disclosure and policies around all of this. So we made sure to have things like obviously a privacy user policy, things like this, even from the get-go when we were putting out still a very scrappy product, because even though it's in beta, we are still handling, concrete individual data. And I think another point would be that also play into our choice of databases, etc. Because for example, we picked things where we could do row-level security so that we could ensure that user data was basically only accessible towards them, and that it wouldn't be like essentially leaked. I think on the compliance end, it really varied a lot from school to school because each of them had their own individual checklists. In Singapore, it was a lot easier because MOE has a standard kind of compliance kind of system that they go by. But in the US, for example, which is another market that we are actively penetrating right now, because it's so fragmented. So it was really a lot of extra hassle to have to go through this with each school. But I guess in a sense, because we are now placing so much focus on cybersecurity, it also helps us get a leg up in the market against other products which might be very B2C focused, so they like don't really care like if someone doesn't sue them, then it's chill. So it does give us a leg up in a sense now that we have invested into this. Yeah.
Okay, so speaking of like education context, right? What do you think are like the biggest challenges in making the AI outputs feel like useful and trustworthy and relevant in like Singapore education system context?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is obviously with any AI, like Gen AI tool, that's like hallucination. And I think that's the last thing anyone wants. Because obviously there are people that like are like, I'll just throw my like details into ChatGPT and then tell it like, give me a resume. And then they don't end up using it because the output is just so trashy and half of it is made up. And especially because we wanted to automate workflows such that, for example, there could be one-click apply. We really had to make sure it was high quality. Otherwise, people wouldn't dare to use our one-click apply by applying with some like hard resume. So for example, there was a lot of, because we're working with like Gemini, we had to prompt engineer as well as adjust a lot of, let's say, the temperature settings to cope with that, and also a lot of fine tuning based on whatever we were receiving. Because one problem that we had was with the same input, like we were getting a bunch of different outputs, and also even after we reduced the hallucination, like that was still a problem. So then a lot of back and forth on that prompt engineering and the kind of how we are limiting the scope of like the like creativity of the output. Yeah.
So instead of like fine tuning like your models, right? Have you ever like considered using API-based approaches like OpenAI or like Hugging Face out of the box?
Yeah, we actually used to be on OpenAI out of the box, but because it was really slow, I think also because we were basically our system allows for multiple workflows like going simultaneously. And so that kind of delay in speed was a very large problem on the user end. And also because we wanted to have like more specificity to distinguish it from any of the regular like Gen AI like things that you can use like if I just go on like GPT. So I think that's why we moved towards first of all from OpenAI to Gemini and as well as with our prompt engineering and fine-tuning approach. Yeah.
That's interesting. Okay, I think I'll ask something on the UX perspective. So like how did you like test out like your early versions when you soft launched? Did you have like a structured like QA process or was it more like a guerrilla style like testing?
Yeah, so at the start, we didn't really have a structured QA process because it's very lengthy. And I think while it is the optimal state to move towards, like for example, right now we are doing that. But at the early stages when we were pivoting so much, it was just very impractical. So we just went with like guerrilla style testing. We also did like A/B testing with different user groups. And because we also actively try to build like an online community, for example, we have a community Discord, we are also building very actively in public over social media. So a lot of things like that can just be quickly pushed out to users. We can also just see immediately how they interact with that and how they like it. Yeah. So that was more of the approach that we took at the start. But obviously, we do recognize the merits of like structured QA. So we are moving towards that now that we have stabilized a bit more on the features. Yeah.
That's interesting and exciting to see. One last question from me would be like, where do you think AI in like education is headed, unlike or in ed tech like startups? And how do you see like like your startups fitting into that future? And where do you see your like startup in like 5 years, or yourself in 5 years?
That's a great question. I think in 5 years, I will probably be like fresh out of college or something. But definitely still working on the startup. Actually, one of my pillars behind my like college choices and everything is also how much value they'll add towards me building sub. To the broader question of how edtech fits into the landscape, I think right now a lot more institutions are warming up to the thought of really integrating AI into like their learning systems, and they are realizing that students are going to use it whether they like it or not. So they are kind of forced to embrace it a little bit more. And so in that sense, we are very actively working with institutions. I think a lot of edtech startups are very consumer focused, which is a very, how should I put it? It's an easy way to get a large volume of users very quickly because institutions are incredibly tricky to deal with. But first of all, there's a lot of saturation on that front. We felt like in spaces like at least Singapore, it was okay-ish. In the US, it's really, really oversaturated. And it's also very hit or miss in the sense that, well, maybe one day our launch will go viral, but until then, like, what is the plan for like GTM and everything? Which is why we wanted to focus on institutions. And I think it was also a strategic timing with the realization that they are opening up. So let's seize this opportunity to open these conversations with them. I'd say at least for now, it's been very promising. Like, for example, we are working with community colleges in the US that allows us access to a very large pool of students. We are also working with some of the more specialized institutions, like, let's say, schools geared towards finance or geared towards law, tech. So it's very exciting. And I think in general, that is sort of the long-term plan. While we distribute B2C, we also want to work directly with institutional subscriptions, not just to basically reach more students and obviously higher revenue since it's higher value contracts, but also in general to be able to integrate with the existing education system rather than being like a, well, not a distractor, but something outside of it that students sort of like go to as an alternative, but to work with what's already there to make the system better. Yeah.
Wow, that's actually pretty incredible, Ace. I'm actually really excited for like your startup and like what kind of lengths you like, how far you go. I'm also pretty like rooting for it as well. And it's quite incredible. We don't often very see like young women especially to like own a startup and to just go all out and like despite having like a A-levels this year and everything and just risking it all. I'm actually incredibly proud of you. For now, guys, we'll be like opening up the floor to Q&As. So if you have any questions or anything, please raise up your hands. We'll be giving you the mics to ask Ace any questions.
Hi. Sorry. Earlier, you mentioned that you had to make sure the generated materials was of sufficient quality, correct? So, how do you actually do that? Is it a more manual process, or is there an automated way to check for the quality of the output?
Definitely. So I think it also kind of starts from what kind of data we're working with, because we recognize that, students are not going to give the most robust, most like data laden prompts. They're probably just going to say something like, oh, this is the JD, write me a resume. So starting from our user onboarding process, we go to great lengths to ask them like fill out a very comprehensive profile. It's a 20-step process, but the point is you do this and you'll never have to do it again. From here on, it's just one click generate for everything. And it is really one click generate that you don't really have to regenerate, because from the robust data that you're giving us, we're able to get a high quality output. I think also on the other hand, it was very heavy prompt engineering, like just going back to that, because at the start, we didn't really put enough emphasis on that. We realized that what was coming out was a lot of AI slop. Not only is it hallucinating or whatever, it was just very obviously I'd say like a resume has to be very in a certain structure or with certain language. So that's kind of what we had to take in mind as well. Also, there was a lot of input of like existing templates as well as like samples of what the model should be gearing towards producing. So obviously giving enough like context as well as enough of this existing examples that we wanted to follow. That was very helpful. Yeah.
So do the tests that you run also work when you like change AI vendors, or if you like upgrade to a different model, because there's a lot of change right now. So in half a year, probably every year you'll be changing models multiple times.
Yeah, I think the way that we designed our architecture or our systems was also very built towards what you're mentioning. When we first changed to Gemini, so we're on 2.5 Flash, it was, I think, the second like best LLM or something out there. Right now it's dropped to like number 6 or something, and it's always changing. That is one consideration that we had, as well as the fact that even if we stick with like one like kind of provider, they are going to constantly release new models. So we did design our system around being able to adapt or change out to a different model, whichever is like the most achievable within our like boundaries, but also speed and value. Yeah.
I have one last question. What do you think about the ethics about doing this? Because obviously you're doing this so you don't believe it's unethical, which I think it's fine to use this to apply for jobs and craft invitation for like coffee invites. But on the flip side of this, right, there are people creating tools that you can use to do interviews, right? And like,
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
So where do you what's your stand on that kind of tools?
Okay, if you're talking about Kuri, I hate Kuri, but yeah, I think that there's a very fine line between this. What we're doing is not to help people, as they would put it, cheat on everything, for example. What we're doing is to reduce the grunt work and these manual repetitive processes. So what we're actually encouraging is for them to put more time and effort on the things like thinking about like their career or like these actual engagements, networking. That's what we want to do, because we're setting up the coffee chats, we're setting up whatever. We want them to put their energy towards that. It's a more productive use of time as a human, rather than filling out I've heard, for example, TikTok has a very long and like really like complex like application thing. So these things that can be automated, we should automate them. It's also like similar to how internally we work as well. For example, a lot of people ask if we vibe code. The answer is no, because on the cybersecurity end, that's very bad. But also we do allow our devs to use AI as and when it speeds them up. But ultimately, you need to be still putting in the effort to like look through the code, to like change it, fine tune it, etc. I think on the ethics end as well, like really, because we are basically not really applying to the, how do I say, we're not making them out to be something that they're not when recruiting. We feel that there's nothing unethical about it. But when it comes to things like, for example, having overlay on your screen when you're interviewing that solves the interview for you, obviously that's not the direction that we want to go in at all. Like personally, as a founder, I don't believe in that. So yeah, I think we are simply staying on the streamlining and automation track rather than that. Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone has any other questions for Ace? No? Okay, then that's all from Ace for today. Thank you so much, Ace, once again. Okay,
Thank
wish you all the
you.
best for your AI startup. Okay.
Thank you.
So yeah, after now we can like move on to our next speaker, Kirtana, who will be showing us about how from code to customers, a journey through tech roles and how to navigate them. And she's our very own like product manager at Rakuten as well. So yeah.
Spotlight. Should be connected now. Is it? It's okay. Are you sure? It's okay. Yeah. Okay. Oh, sorry. Go to the Zoom. Yep. Okay. Oh. Oh. Patient. Yes. Okay. Okay.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining here today for the talk. I'm Kirtana. I work as a product manager for Rakuten Asia. So yeah, my topic here is going to be from code to customers. Okay. So I'd like to take you on a journey here. So not just through like my different career roles, but also through how my mindset shifted across all these various roles, and how these mindset shifts were like quite elemental in finding a sense of purpose and satisfaction. So I hope you find some parts of your journey in this too. You might not relate to the whole story, but even if there's like a small change in perspective or any kind of motivation that lets you think that you need not conform to what's considered normal, then I think it would be like a personal victory for me that this talk's a success. So with that, let me just briefly walk through the different things that I did across my previous years. So fresh out of college, I started working as a front-end developer. So when I still look back, I could see myself wrestle with Angular JavaScript back then, and also with a very aggressive and also like demanding architect. So I was into front-end development for a year, and I pivoted into business analysis. So I wanted to try out selling something that we built. I think that was the first time that I ever got a taste of the customer side of things. And I also realized how difficult it is to sell something to someone, especially that you've built from scratch. So, with that, my next role was as a SAFE trainer. So, for those of you here who may not be familiar, SAFE stands for Scaled Agile Framework. It's a knowledge base of a lot of agile and lean related frameworks that helps organizations move towards agile. So at this point, when I was doing decently well as a SAFE trainer, I was thinking that I was being more of a generalist. I remember asking myself, what am I doing? But regardless of that, me being the person I am, I still wanted to try something new. So I came here to Singapore to pursue my master's in information systems. The pandemic hit. I joined Rakuten back in 2020 as a backend engineer. 1 year of backend development, and I pivoted again to project management. So I worked as a project manager for 3 years. And just from the starting of this year, I've been trying out product management as a role. Okay, so let me just walk through each of these roles and like what I felt at those points or like what shifted for me. So when I started out as a developer, I think I really felt like it didn't spark a sense of joy in me while I was coding. I think as a front-end engineer, I really enjoyed like selecting the color palettes or thinking about how the UI layout needs to be. But bringing these elements to life was something that I really didn't enjoy while writing the code. I used to look at my fellow developers and think I'd be like really awestruck at the amount of passion that they had, and I used to think like they have it all figured out. So they know what their true calling is. So yeah, that's how it started for me. Um, okay, I was at a point where I really wanted to figure out what I wanted with my career. I was confused. So I remember walking up to my manager and saying, like, I think I'll quit my job and I like figure out what I want to do next. So then he proposed to me that, why don't you try doing business analysis for the same product that you built or helped build rather? So looking back, probably I was a bit too naive and I jumped in too quick. I did not consider the pros and cons of it, or if it's something that really has value to it. I would say like I could develop my storytelling skills better when I started doing this role of business analyst. But then a really harsh truth hit me. I could see that there was no real user value to this product. So this is like a version that I created from what I could remember of what we had back then. So this product that we built focused on tracking different metrics. It was an internal product, and it would track metrics like developer metrics and like application analytics, performance analytics, usage analytics. Not these exact ones, but something on these lines, right? But one thing that I vividly remember is we track like the number of commits any developer did on a particular day. There was also like a drop down which lets you select other developers and see how they are doing with their Git commits, right? So when I tried to sell this product to teams, of course they were not interested. Why would you want to like look at metrics of everyone? Let's say a developer does like 100 commits a day, another developer who does 10 commits a day. Does it mean like who does a fewer commits is working less or like is delivering a low quality of work? Of course not. So that's when it really landed upon me that just like amazing tech would be wasted if the product has no genuine use case. So yeah, that was how my journey was. And also back then when I remember someone asking me, so you're moving away from writing code into business analysis, won't you lose your edge? Well, looking back, I don't think I did. It's more like sharpening it. So every role added a new perspective or a new dimension. And holistically, when I think about it, it's helped me grow in my career and look at different things in a different way and not just like according to the current role that I'm a part of. Okay. Yeah, so as I mentioned previously, after trying out business analysis for a year, I um, uh, I started working as a SAFE trainer. So SAFE, as I previously mentioned, stands for Scaled Agile Framework. Uh, so um, so if you ask me like what each of this means now, I would probably know some and not know some, but at a very high level, when we did the training, our focus was on moving teams to use this framework to be more agile. So SAFE has a portal. You can just type it out, and it's a very interactive user face that you come upon. So each of these elements are clickable, and you can go and read about these. So at a high level, essential SAFE would be to help your teams move towards SAFE. Large solution would be multiple teams working towards SAFE. Similarly, different models for portfolio and for the full, depending on the size of the organization. And when I think about SAFE itself, a few things that really shape my mindset about it is interesting things like the Agile Manifesto. So, what it advocates is different things like you prioritize working software over comprehensive documentation, or individuals and interactions over processes and tools, and reacting or responding to change rather than sticking to a solid plan. So, at the core of it, what I felt it all meant is at the end of the day, it's about doing something that brings about value and not just sticking to the plan or the process just for the purpose of sticking to it. So when it comes to a point where you need to do something, if the action is bringing up more value than what would have happened if you followed the process, I would say just go ahead with it. And as a SAFE trainer, I used to co-train with a colleague of mine. So we did not like just run lectures. We simulated the actual event. So there is uh, a PI planning event. So PI stands for program increment. So it's like a time boxed interval of like, let's say 8 to 12 weeks within which you expect to deliver some value, right? So how it worked is we simulated it for the participants by making them assume roles, like some of them as product owners, as business owners, as developers, as architects, and we would give them a real world problem and think of it as a project, or more rather a problem that they would want to create the solution for. We would break them into teams, and they would create epics and estimate the velocity and see how they're doing against that sprint's velocity. And at the end of it, we would take confidence votes to see if it's a go ahead for the project or not. So this was something that was quite useful, and I could improve my skills in connecting with people. So the feedbacks that we would receive at the end of each session was also like very important in a sense of like providing validation to us and improving our confidence as trainers. So it was something that I would say is one of the things that helped me improve as a trainer. Let me just walk through the next one. So, as I mentioned, like after doing the SAFE trainer role, I was looking to pursue masters. So I came here to study masters in information systems. And I also took a range of courses, from technical courses like machine learning and mobile development to business-oriented ones like human-computer interaction, and also information architecture design to understand how the different human elements could spark a change in the perspective of how the users interacted with the product. And because the pandemic hit at the same time I was pursuing my master's, I was quite anxious about how the job market would be and if I'd be able to land a job soon. So I wanted to squeeze in a couple of internships. And the most notable of these two was like with a B2B food startup. So I would say it was like a very chaotic experience. Of course, the startup culture is known any startup would be aggressive, but then the aggressive culture was too much that it was going beyond the acceptable boundaries. So to a point where it started affecting my productivity and morale. So now, if you ask me, the lesson that I learned from here is you need not prove yourself in every role, especially if it's like going to cost your productivity and your mental health. And definitely, it's important, not just essential. It's like the actual thing that you need to do to prioritize what helps you move forward and not get stuck with something like this. Yeah, so this is about my master's and the internship. Because the job market was not doing really great, although I wanted a business-facing role, the option that was most viable and easy for me at that point was to join back as a developer. So I started working as a developer again. This was my first job in Singapore at Rakuten. When I started coding, I could like relive my initial days of coding. I could still feel like, oh, I did not enjoy coding. But this time I could confirm for sure that it's not that I'm not trying. I really don't enjoy coding. So, okay, so let me walk to the next slide. So here, um, okay, uh, at Rakuten, it's been like a very different working experience. Rakuten's like very supportive, especially trying out new roles. The culture not just supports you to try, but rather encourages you to try new things, technically also new roles. So when I was looking into what interested me the most, I was leaning towards product management. There were a lot of product managers that I would look up to. So the way they navigated a lot of client discussions or like strengthened business relationships or creating strategies to achieve their KPIs. So when I worked with such people, I realized that's where I wanted or what I wanted to do. At the same time, I came across an opening for project management. It was an internal switch. At that point, how I looked at the role is more of a bridge to help me land at product management. So I took it up. So what we do here, I mean, at least the bigger team of where I belong to right now, what we do is focus on advertising. We help multiple businesses advertise efficiently on multiple external media. So because this is a scenario, we handle a lot of projects extensively. So I could easily say that any point of time, a project manager would be handling 8 to 10 projects. So in this scenario, what helped me like was my mindset that I developed from SAFE, where I learned how to respond to change or like prioritize working through the process and not just sticking to the current process, especially when you have multiple projects and the changes or things could be like very rapidly changing. So I would say this is where like my past experience really helped me. Similarly, because I was into coding for a couple of years with some break in between, and mine is a very technical product. So whenever such discussions happened, I wasn't lost. It wasn't that I couldn't connect to the technical discussions, which helped me like work better on my project management skills as well. So yeah, all these past experiences, I would say, culminated together to help me function as a better project manager. Eventually, I was able to successfully land the role as a product manager too. So just starting this year. And I could already see a change in my mindset, more towards thinking about the KPIs or like more customer driven. So I hope to continue doing this. Yeah, so I'd like to end the session with a thought. So I think we often see ourselves choosing between the choice of should I be a generalist or should I be a specialist. I say you should be a shapeshifter because in a world where things are like constantly changing, the only thing that you can do is to change or continuously evolve. We often tend to think of career paths as like really straight ladders. But what if it's not? What if it's like more of a map where you get lost and then find your way? So, to those of you out there who think like your career paths are messy, I'd just like to request you to do this. Start owning your story. Uh, Tell your story with pride, because both in tech and in life, there's more than one way to do things. Yeah, that's it. Thank you. Any questions? Okay.
Hi, I'm Tanya. I'm a software engineer now for almost coming to 10 years. And like you, I'm quite keen to explore product management or kind of a maybe business analyst role. So when you had the talk with your manager, how did you bring about it? Yeah, I would like to know that. Yeah.
So I think I was quite honest about it. So when I was working as the developer, one thing was I did bring it up that if there's an opportunity for me to try out my hands at different things, I'd like to. But at the same time, I also started doing things that would reflect that. So we used to run daily huddles, and I used to be like very involved in it. I'll ask a lot of questions. I'll be curious to know about the tasks. So I think that also started conveying them that I'm more interested. I'm just not saying it. Of course, I code, but I also am interested in knowing more about the product or about the project. And so when the opportunity came in, they could see that, okay, it's something that she'd be able to do it and not just like word of mouth. Yeah.
Thank you very much for the presentation. It was quite interesting. My name is Natalia. I am a founder of technology company based in Singapore, but we also have operations globally, like in Hong Kong, Poland, Luxembourg, and Canada. And I was very interested in the journey that you showed, and was curious if you have any kind of thoughts or advice about what is the best way to set up environment for team members, for employees to be able to feel like they are very have a good opportunities for them to progress in the roles that they would like to. And is there any initiatives you've seen in your companies that you work with that encourage create a really good kind of culture and also environment for them to grow? Because right now we are recruiting several roles in Singapore. So I was really curious, about your advice on this.
Okay, that's a very interesting question. I think I can just borrow from what we have as practice here in Rakuten. So we as employees, we have like goals that we need to set at the start of every year that we need to achieve to rate ourselves. So one of the mandatory goals that we have to do is on self-improvement. And more than often, where this falls under is to explore new things that's not related to your just your daily work. And so it gives you the space to explore something. So a backend engineer would now say that I'd like to try my hands on front end, and he or she is able to do it because there's a dedicated goal that's put against it, and he or she is expected to satisfy. And we also used to, not all teams, but some of the teams used to have like dedicated bi-weekly Friday afternoons, a couple of hours, blocked just to like do certifications or do things that you're interested in. It might seem like you're consuming a lot of time, but in the long run, looking at it, the results were really good. People were able to like, and I really feel like the more you think like the company is invested in you to grow as a person, you are also more interested and you work involved. So yeah, that's how it's been.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I know it's very common in US also to have those kind of 80-20 or the
Right.
split time
Yeah.
for passion projects. And is there anything on your wish list that you wish to have more in your work environment, or any opportunities that you would want to have?
I think I'd like to have more communities. More like product management related communities. It's like still in the very beginning phases, I would say. And I think these communities help to like discuss with very like-minded people and to help you grow. And also like having mentors is something that's helpful. There are like mentorship programs that we have as part of our company, but I'd like to see more of it. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, so I understand that you're pushing for trying new roles. I just want to ask, how do you usually transition from like a software, I mean a front end to a product manager? Like, are the certificates enough, or do you take a bunch of internships in your free time?
Okay. I think I did a little of everything, to be honest. Yeah, when I started front end development, my next role as a business analyst, probably I didn't have to do anything much because my manager wanted me to try. But for the next one, I voluntarily did a certification to become an expert because I wanted to be a trainer. So, of course, I did invest in it. But my following set of experiences heavily borrowed from my previous ones. I could easily become a project manager because I'd spent time or invested in SAFE. I could get into backend coding again because I had some background of coding. So it might be difficult to get started, but when you have diverse experiences in the future, you can borrow from those, combine from those, and like it would be helpful to for you to try new roles.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, I'd like to check whether, like, during the transition from a product, I mean, to a technical to a product role, right? What soft skills that you need to hone that you previously do not have, or like you can leverage it better and deepen your skills? Thank you.
Okay, yeah. So this is an interesting question because I think I did struggle with it initially a bit because it takes different kind of communication skills to be a product manager. So you need to know how and what to talk to your customers. So in my case, I cannot, because I come from a tech background also, I remember the times when I would just like discuss the solution with my customers or like talk more from a tech perspective. They may not understand the complete solution, right? So then I try to like explain in more layman terms, but I wasn't getting the hang of it initially. So I used to mentor with people and see how they communicate with my business people. So it's like more putting myself in their shoes and thinking like, okay, this is the view that they have. The other things are a black box. So how do I explain it better to them so that they relate to it more? So this is something that I did work on when I started working with more of business people. And I think I had this tendency to fall back into, even when I was like writing requirement documents, this tendency to think about the tech solution, or like even my requirement documents would at some point start diving into the solution. So it took like some conscious effort to just look at it as a product, as a feature. What value is it giving? What KPI is it giving? What customer solution is it solving? So that is something that helped me. Yeah.
Hi, Kirtana. I wanted to ask, how did your tech knowledge help you as a PM? Like, did the knowledge of APIs and databases help you at all?
Of course. So it did totally help me. Uh, so uh, uh, I would be part of discussions with a lot of business folks um, who had no idea of things worked. So there were like discussions where I was the only other person talking with the business person. So then he or she would ask me that I want this integration to be done and this graph or this representation to be done. So how much time would it take? So if I didn't have the tech background, I wouldn't be able to say it to have the basic understanding of how these things worked and how my tech worked and how the APIs are integrated, it's more or less okay for me to suggest a rough estimate or to say that this might be challenging, let me check and get back, instead of like overcommitting or like being completely clueless about it. This is one thing that I realized did help me. Even with the technical discussions with my team, when I present and they ask me questions, I'm able to relate to it better and provide them like a more comprehensive solution. And when they give me timelines, I'm able to ask, this looks like too much or this looks like too less. And I'm not like taking it as face value, which I would have probably if I didn't have the tech background. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Kirtana, for your talk. And honestly, generalist was a specialist. I definitely identify myself as a generalist. I even did like a whole article about it. And in conclusion, what I said was to be more of a T shape, have a general knowledge of everything, but also have like a very specific focus on one domain as well. So thank you all for coming down all the way to Rakuten's headquarters to come for this software talk. I hope you guys learned something new. Here's our feedback form from Women Devs. You can let us know how we did today. And please scan the QR code and let us know. Your feedback is very important so that we can prepare more for the next software talk or any